Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because we've got a double act of Age of the Primes aerialbots today, and I've got a big question for you. Are these guys soaring by your estimation, or have they just failed to take off? For my money, I've got to be honest and say the individual robot modes of these guys were slightly underwhelming to me when they were first unveiled, but I did think that the combined superion mode looked really good, and I have had a great time with the legacy stunticons, so I thought it was worth giving them a bit of a go in hand to make up my own mind. So of course that's what we're here for today, but don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments as we go. Last thing before we begin, this video is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers specialist who have got tons of robots in disguise available for pre-order and in stock right now, so if you live in Europe you should absolutely go and give them a look. There's an affiliate link down in the description below, and if you use it then you can get the occasional discount as well, so what are you waiting for? So let's kick off today with the jet modes, and I know nobody's going to believe me when I say this, there's really no pun intended, but I can't help thinking that they look a little plain. Like, don't get me wrong, they do exactly what they need to for kind of generation-styled, cartoon-inspired aerial bots, right? Like, this is exactly what you would want it to be, and yet somehow, I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit underwhelmed. Like, Slingshot here is predominantly very white. I mean, there is a little bit of colour here just on the wings and the Autobot logo, but not a lot else besides. Do you find it strange how this little indent just here is white on the one side and not on the other? I don't know what that's about. Of course, you've got a little bit of blue on the rear tail fin as well, and it is a nice colour at least. And I do like the decently saturated orange of the cockpit. That's really nice. By and large, it's pretty tidy as well. I mean, often these modes can't avoid looking like, you know, men lying down with wings, and there is a little bit of that going on, but the arms here are pretty well hidden actually, so I give them props for that. The feet are pretty obvious at the back, so I think that is unavoidable, but generally, you know, it's pretty neat. Also really love the way the landing gear pops out the back of the head here. I do think that's really clever, so nice bit of design going on. And you know, it looks nice enough sitting on a table somewhere or swooshing around your living room or whatever you want to do with it, but I don't know, it's just not grabbing me in quite the same way that maybe some of the other recent Age of the Prime stuff has, you know? Similar story on Air Raid, to be fair. I mean, obviously here it's mostly black instead, but that does look nice. Slightly strange choice to have a non-white backed Autobot logo here, if only because it looks a little bit drab and kind of doesn't stand out against the black, although here at least the white paint is fairly nicely saturated, because sometimes white paint on black plastic doesn't work out too well. Little pop of grey on the rear fins, which is subtle but looks a little bit classy if anything. I quite like it. And a little splash of silver, which doesn't really pop or anything, but it's there. I will say that this one very much falls into the trap of man lying down and pretending to be a plane, right? Like, obviously you've got the head just here, you've got the arms not very well hidden. I mean, yes, the hands are folded away, but still. And then you've got all of this kind of bump with the feet. I mean, that is not the most aerodynamic looking jet ever, right? Like, I get this stuff has got to go somewhere, but I don't know if that's quite the perfect solution, but hey ho. That said, like Slingshot, I do really like the placement of the landing gear. In this case, it's just on the back of his little Autobot logo on his chest, so again, I think that's pretty clever. And whilst yes, the feet do stick out a little bit underneath, it does mean that in comparison to Slingshot, you get these rather natty little thrusters at the back here, which is kind of cool. And again, it's decent overall here, and there's nothing really wrong or anything like that. I think the problem is that we've just been so spoiled for kind of weird and wonderful toys at the moment. Like, I say this as someone that really likes the aerialbots. I've always been quite a fan, and I really like planes as well, but I don't know, just with some of the stuff that's coming out in Age of the Primes at the moment, some of the really strange stuff, you know, like Onyx Prime that we just reviewed, these guys just feel a little bit pedestrian, if anything. And I should stress that that's not really a comment on the designs. I mean, actually, I think the designs themselves are pretty good. I think it's just more that Generation 1 cartoon-styled aerialbots feels like something we've sort of seen before, and I'm kind of appreciating the more wacky stuff right now, if anything. To be fair, I suppose you could kind of say the same of the Stunticons. I mean, they're very much cut from the same cloth, and as I say, I did end up enjoying that overall experience with the complete team, so I do think that in some regards this will come good once the 5 of them are combined. You know, I'm really looking forward to that day. It's just for now, with the individuals, they're not quite as exciting as some of the other stuff on offer, you know? Still, if Generation 1 aerialbots are your jam and it's something that you're looking for, then there's very little to grumble about here overall. Yes, there's a little bit of kibble or whatever else, but honestly, these are pretty nice plane modes by and large, I think. Of course, you can also equip them with their weapons, which in Air Raid's case just go under the wings, and then just fold that landing gear up, and there you go, he's ready to do battle in the skies. Similar story with Slingshot, of course, he's got these natty little double-barreled guns, and there you go, 2 armed-up plane modes ready to go. What's not to like? So yeah, by and large, I'm happy enough with this set of jets, but of course it's only half the story in this case, so let's go ahead and check out those transformations. And there we go, you got yourself a pair of robot modes, and the transformation in both cases is really rather simple, very straightforward, and kind of what you would expect, to be honest, but hey, it's fun and repeatable, and it gets the job done. Which I think is kind of the overall sentiment with the robot modes. You know, much as with the jet modes, they're kind of what you would expect. I mean, they look like the cartoon, which is what people might want in this case, and you know, they're nothing truly remarkable, but they are the Generation 1 aerial bots, for better or for worse. Which, you know, again, isn't meant to sound like anything of a critique. It's just that we've come off the back of reviewing something like Onyx Prime, and by comparison, these guys are kind of more run-of-the-mill, I guess, you know? It's sort of the nature of the beast, I think. But hey, there's still plenty of good stuff here. I mean, for one thing, the head sculpts in both cases are absolutely banging. I mean, that is G1 Slingshot through and through. I really think they've captured it. The orange looks great. The kind of weird, bald head is accurate as you would want it to be, and I just think it's a job well done overall. There's not a whole ton of paint going on here. I mean, there is that black in the middle, but of course that's not very remarkable, and otherwise it's a lot of bare plastic, like on the red just here. Likewise, you know, on the legs it's a lot of white plastic, and with all the colour tucked around the back on the wings, it doesn't leave a lot of visual interest, and then you've got little kind of gaps like this, which is quite unsightly, not gonna lie. And that's to say nothing of all this bump just back here, kind of hanging off his heels. I mean, it does make his feet look absolutely massive. But still, I do feel like there's some slightly awkward proportions on Slingshot in particular. I don't know, it's not bad at all, but something about it just, again, it doesn't float my boat in quite the way I would have liked, you know? As before, we got a rather fantastic head sculpt on Air Raid though. Really love the silver and the little blue eyes going on there. That all looks very traditionally handsome, but it suits the character as well. I feel like they've captured him very nicely. Again, the chest is rather bare. I mean, this red plastic is all too obvious, but I guess in this case, at least you've got the Autobot logo to kind of break things up, and a little bit of white there. It's not much, but it's something. There is even a little bit of red just on the knee there. I mean, again, I'm reaching here, you know, I'm really reaching. It's just the nature of these Sunbow designs sometimes. They're just not the most colourful or kind of visually embellished. I feel like Air Raid works a lot better in hand though, and a lot of that again is due to the feet. I mean, these just feel a lot more manageable. The kibble is much better handled in my opinion, and I don't know, it doesn't feel as cumbersome as a result. Which means it's a funny old business really, because I didn't expect to kind of have such a difference of opinion between these two toys. I thought they'd be quite samey, but actually I'm really quite digging Air Raid a lot over Slingshot. I really feel like there's some noticeable advantages of the one over the other. I mean, they shouldn't be that different as I say, but just something about Air Raid works in a way that Slingshot feels slightly awkward. Now, articulation wise, Slingshot's head can move quite freely, and it can look up and down a little bit as well. You've then got plenty of movement in the shoulder thanks to some hinges, and of course it'll go all the way back and forward as well. There's also a bicep rotation going on there, and a double jointed elbow as well, although nothing in the hands. They're just statically molded and painted. You get a very welcome waist rotation in there, and then the hips are on pins, so you'll get up to about 90 degrees, give or take, and then you've got a mushroom peg for a bit of a swivel in there. You get about a 90-degree bend at the knee as well, and a very decent ankle tilt. Same deal with Air Raid, to be fair. I mean, you can look up and down, side to side. Shoulders are on a pin in this case, but they've still got a lot of movement, and they can go all the way back and forward too. As before, there's that mushroom peg, so you get a bit of bicep rotation, although no double jointed elbows here, so they go just to over 90 degrees, and there's no wrist articulation here to be spoken of, but at least here the hands are separately molded pieces, so I think that looks better. Again, you've got a swivel going on at the waist, and these hips are very similar to Slingshots as well. You will get about a 90-degree bend, and then again you've got that kind of mushroom peg just there for a bit of thigh rotation. Elsewhere in the legs, you get a 90-degree bend at the knee, and there is again an ankle tilt. Add it all up, and again they kind of do exactly what you would expect them to do. I mean, they're nicely articulated, you can ram them into some decent poses. Again, I do kind of feel that Slingshot is the slightly more awkward or cumbersome here, just purely on account of those feet. They're just so massive that they're a little bit of a consideration, but overall it's fine. Now, initially I was going to chalk up my slightly underwhelmed reaction to these two versus the Legacy Stunticons to the fact that I got those guys as part of the toy style box set option, which means that, you know, you experience them all as one set, all in one go, and there's no doubt that they're more impressive as an overall package in that regard, rather than looking at them on a case-by-case basis. And, you know, in this case they've got a little bit more colour to them and whatever else as well, but I don't think it's just that, actually. I think there's a real creativity to the way the Stunticons transform, and the car modes are really nice, and it just adds up to maybe a little bit more of an impressive package in each case, in my opinion. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Stunticons are perfect either. Like, there's absolutely some kibble to them and some compromises along the way, but there's no doubt that as an overall package, you know, all five going in, it's pretty good fun. So I am hoping that I'll get a little bit more of that vibe once the aerial bots are all assembled as well, time will tell, I guess. I guess in some ways that makes it a similar tale to the recently reviewed studio series Bone Crusher. You know, I was slightly underwhelmed by the individual package, but I am still holding out a lot of hope for the overall combined set, you know, and I do think that, again, when they're all together, when it's all combined, I will end up enjoying it and kind of appreciating it for being more than the sum of its parts, you know? And again, I do think that part of it is honestly just that we've had it so good recently in terms of studio series and Age of the Primes, with so much unusual, kind of interesting stuff going on, that these two, by comparison, you know, they are decent enough, but they're just sort of a bit more run-of-the-mill, I guess. I don't know what else to say. It's not that they're bad by any means, it's just they can't possibly be as interesting as stuff like Onyx Prime or whatever else. Anyway, suffice it to say, I'm still all in on this set, right? Like, I absolutely think the combined mode looks wicked, and I can't wait to assemble them all before too long. So as far as today goes, yes, it's a slightly muted reaction, but it's still undeniably a toot. Now, as I mentioned before, this video is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers specialist with tons of robots in disguise in stock and available for pre-order right now, and in the description below you will find an affiliate link which will give you the occasional discount on their site as well, so what are you waiting for? I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, but otherwise that's it from me, so have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.